Angry Viking bought 3 young Celtic sisters. What he did next shocked the whole clan. Before we begin, let us know where you're listening from. After the story, rated from 1 to 10. Now let's start. The northern winds howled across the fjord, carrying with them the scent of salt and iron as Gunnar Erikson's longship cut through the churning waves. His knuckles whitened around the wooden railing, his eyes, blue as a winter sky, fixed on the horizon where the green coastline of Orla waited. Behind him, 20 warriors prepared their weapons, their beards crusted with sea spray, their hearts hungry for glory and plunder. "Land ahead!" called Thorstein from the bow, his voice carrying over the rhythmic slap of oars against water. Gunnar nodded, feeling the familiar surge of anticipation that preceded every raid. At 30 winters he had already earned his place among the most feared warriors of his clan. Songs were sung of his exploits in the great mead hall, and women whispered his name with both fear and desire. Yet something gnawed at him, an emptiness that neither battle nor mead could fill. "The settlement lies just beyond that ridge," said Hakon, his oldest friend and trusted second. "Small. Undefended. Rich with goods and slaves." The word slaves left a bitter taste in Gunnar's mouth, though he would never admit it. It was the way of things, the strong took from the weak. The gods favored the bold. And yet, with each passing season, he found less glory in the terror of the innocent. As their dragon-headed ship beached upon the shore, the warriors leapt into the shallow water, weapons drawn. Gunnar raised his axe, leading the charge toward the small Celtic settlement. Smoke soon filled the air as his men set fire to the thatched roofs. Screams echoed through the valley as terrified villagers fled or fought with desperate courage. In the chaos, Gunnar cornered a Celtic man who stood protectively before a small stone hut, a crude iron sword trembling in his hands. "Stay back, devil!" the man shouted in his strange tongue. Gunnar understood enough to recognize the fear in his voice. Behind the defender, 3 young women huddled together, sisters by their similar features, the eldest perhaps 20 summers, the youngest no more than 18. What happened next unfolded with brutal efficiency. The defender fell to Gunnar's axe, and the sisters were bound and dragged to the shore with the other captives. The youngest wept quietly, while the middle sister hurled curses in her native tongue. But it was the eldest who caught Gunnar's attention, her fiery red hair framing a face that showed neither fear nor defeat, only a cold, calculating rage. As the spoils were divided among the warriors, Gunnar claimed all 3 sisters for himself, paying a steep price in silver and plundered goods. His men exchanged knowing glances, assuming their leader wanted the women for his bed. "3 is greedy, even for you," jested Hakon, slapping Gunnar's shoulder. Gunnar said nothing, his face an unreadable mask as the captives were loaded onto the longship. The voyage back to their settlement in the Shetland Islands was tense and silent. The sisters huddled together on the deck, the eldest glaring at Gunnar whenever their eyes met. Upon reaching his homestead, a large longhouse set apart from the main village, Gunnar surprised everyone. Instead of claiming the women as bed slaves, he assigned them a small outbuilding and ordered food and clean clothing brought to them. The sisters remained suspicious, waiting for the moment when his true intentions would be revealed. That night, as Gunnar sat alone by his hearth, the door to his longhouse creaked open. The eldest sister stood in the doorway, her copper hair gleaming in the firelight. "If you touch my sisters, I will kill you in your sleep," she said in halting Norse. Gunnar studied her with mild surprise. "You speak our tongue. Our village traded with your kind before you started raiding us," she replied, her chin lifted in defiance. "I am Orla Brennan. My sisters are Fiona and Ashlyn. I am Gunnar Erikson. I did not ask for your name, Viking," she spat. "I only came to warn you." Gunnar leaned forward, the flames casting shadows across his scarred face. "Your sisters are safe from me and my men. You have my word." Orla laughed bitterly. "The word of a Viking? The same word that promises friendship before burning our homes? Why do you think I paid so much to claim all 3 of you?" Gunnar asked quietly. "The alternatives would have been worse." Confusion flickered across Orla's face, quickly replaced by suspicion. "What do you want from us, then?" For now work. My fields need tending, and winter approaches. Do this, and you will be treated well. And then? Gunnar met her gaze steadily. Then we shall see. The next weeks unfolded in an uneasy rhythm. The sisters worked in Gunnar's fields alongside his thralls, though he never treated them as slaves. Orla watched him closely, waiting for treachery that never came. Instead, she observed a man at odds with himself, brutal in training with his warriors, yet gentle with the children of the settlement, respected by his peers but somehow separate from them. As autumn painted the landscape in crimson and gold, rumors spread through the settlement. Why had the fearsome Gunnar Erikson not taken the Celtic women to his bed? Some whispered he was cursed, others that he planned to sacrifice them to the gods. Jarl Eirik, the settlement's leader, summoned Gunnar to the great hall after the weekly Thing assembly. Your behavior raises questions, the Jarl said, studying Gunnar over the rim of his drinking horn. 3 valuable slaves who do little more than tend your crops? Your men wonder if you've gone soft. My men should mind their own affairs, Gunnar replied evenly. It becomes the affair of all when a respected warrior acts strangely. These women are enemies. Their people have killed our brothers, as we have killed theirs. The Jarl's eyes narrowed. Be careful, Gunnar. Such thoughts border on treachery. That night, as the first snow dusted the ground, Gunnar found Orla sitting alone outside the sisters' dwelling, staring at the stars. Your Jarl thinks you should treat us as slaves in truth, she said without looking at him. I heard the whispers. And what do you think? Gunnar asked, sitting beside her on the frozen ground. I think you are a puzzle, Viking. You raid and kill without mercy, yet you have shown us kindness. She finally turned to him, her green eyes reflecting the moonlight. Why? Gunnar was silent for a long moment. I have seen enough suffering, he finally said. 15 summers of raiding. Of taking lives and creating widows. The glory fades, but the memories remain. Yet you continue. It is our way. Ways can change, Orla said softly. Their conversation was interrupted by shouts from the main settlement. Gunnar rose quickly, hand moving to his axe. Stay here, he commanded before striding toward the commotion. A band of warriors had returned from a raid, dragging captives and plunder. Among them was Hakon, blood-splattered and grinning as he recounted their success against the Celtic settlement, Orla's settlement, which they had revisited. We found their warriors regrouped, Hakon boasted in the mead hall. They thought themselves ready for us this time. He laughed, raising his drinking horn. They were mistaken. Gunnar's stomach twisted as Hakon described the slaughter. When he returned to his homestead, he found Orla waiting, her face ashen. They went back, she whispered. Did they? Your village is gone, Gunnar confirmed quietly. I am sorry. Orla's composure shattered. She struck out at him, her fists hammering against his chest as she screamed curses in both Norse and her native tongue. Gunnar stood immobile, accepting her fury until she collapsed against him, exhausted by grief. Kill me if you must, she sobbed. But please spare my sisters. Gunnar gently raised her chin, forcing her to meet his gaze. No harm will come to any of you while I draw breath. This I swear by all the gods. That night marked a turning point. As winter descended in earnest, the sisters remained in Gunnar's household, no longer as captives but as something undefined. Orla began teaching Gunnar her language, while he taught her the finer points of Norse. Her sisters gradually lost their fear of him, especially after he defended Ashland from the unwanted advances of a drunken warrior. The settlement buzzed with gossip. Some claimed Gunnar had been bewitched by the Celtic woman with fire in her hair. Others insisted he was playing some longer game. Gunnar ignored them all, finding in Orla's company a peace he had never known. On the winter solstice, as the settlement celebrated with feasting and sacrifices to ensure the sun's return, Gunnar found Orla standing alone near the sacred grove, watching the proceedings with curious eyes. Your gods are bloodthirsty, she observed as he approached. As is yours, from what I hear, he countered. Does your Christ God not demand the blood of his own son? Orla's lips curved into a rare smile. You have been listening to my prayers. I find your faith interesting. Yet you still worship your Odin and Thor. I honor them, Gunnar corrected. But lately, I wonder if they listen. They stood in companionable silence, watching the celebration from a distance. Then, without planning or thought, Gunnar reached for her hand. To his surprise, she did not pull away. What are we doing, Gunnar? Orla whispered, her voice barely audible above the distant drums. I don't know, he admitted. But I would like to find out. Their first kiss came after, gentle and questioning, both of them aware of the dangerous path they were treading. A Viking warrior and a Celtic captive, it defied all the natural order of their worlds. As winter's grip tightened, their connection deepened. Orla moved from the outbuilding into Gunnar's longhouse, though they maintained separate sleeping quarters out of respect for her sisters and their watchful eyes. They spoke long into the night of their childhoods, their beliefs, the differences and surprising similarities between their peoples. But their growing closeness did not go unnoticed. Hakon confronted Gunnar during a hunting expedition, concern etched on his weathered face. The men talk, my friend. They say you've fallen under the spell of the Celtic witch. The men should find better uses for their tongues. Gunnar replied coldly. It's not just the men. The Jarl watches you closely. Taking a foreign captive as a bed slave is one thing, developing feelings for her is another. I have never cared much for what others think. This is different, Hakon insisted. This woman is changing you. You haven't joined a raid in months. You question decisions at the Thing Assembly that would have gone unchallenged before. Perhaps I've gained wisdom. Or lost your mind, Hakon muttered. Be careful, brother. Some changes cannot be undone. The warning lingered in Gunnar's thoughts as winter began to loosen its hold on the land. With spring would come the raiding season, and he would be expected to lead his warriors across the sea once more. The thought, once exhilarating, now filled him with dread. One evening, as they sat by the hearth, Orla voiced the question that hung between them. Will you raid my homeland again when the ice melts? Gunnar stared into the flames. I don't know. You cannot have both, Gunnar. You cannot claim to care for me while slaughtering my people. And what would you have me do? He asked, frustration edging his voice. Abandon the ways of my ancestors? Become an outcast among my own kind? Is that truly worse than living with blood on your hands? Their argument was interrupted by urgent pounding on the door. Fiona burst in, panic written across her face. Men are coming. Armed men from the settlement. Gunnar rose, reaching for his axe. Stay inside, all of you. Outside, a group of warriors approached, led by Hakon and the Jarl himself. Their faces were grim in the torchlight. Gunnar Erikson, the Jarl called. You are summoned to answer charges. What charges? Gunnar demanded, though he already knew. Betrayal of your people. You have been seduced by the enemy, turning against your own kind. Witnesses say you speak against raiding, that you question our very way of life. Hakon stepped forward, his expression pained. It doesn't have to be this way, brother. Send the women away, sell them at the spring market. Return to who you were. Gunnar's grip tightened on his axe. And if I refuse? Then you face exile, the Jarl declared. Or combat to prove your loyalty. Combat with whom? With me, Hakon said quietly. To the death. Inside the longhouse, Orla listened with growing horror. She knew enough of Viking law to understand what was happening. Gunnar was being forced to choose between his people and her family. Before Gunnar could answer, she stepped outside, her sisters close behind. This is because of us, she said, addressing the Jarl directly in Norse. If we leave, will you spare him? The Jarl studied her with cold eyes. The damage is done. He must prove his loyalty or face the consequences. Then let him raid again, she suggested desperately. One more season. Orla, no, Gunnar interjected. It is the only way, she insisted. Prove to them you are still a Viking. And then? Her voice faltered. And then what? The Jarl asked, curiosity tempering his anger. And then we will leave, she finished. All three of us. You will never see us again. The Jarl considered her proposal, stroking his gray-streaked beard. One raid. Against your people. If he brings back sufficient plunder and shows true Viking spirit, I will consider the matter settled. And if I refuse? Gunnar asked. Then decide which of your oath brothers you will kill first. The Jarl replied coldly. That night, after the Jarl and his men departed, Gunnar and Orla argued fiercely. How could you suggest such a thing? He demanded. You would have me raid your homeland to save my own skin? I would have you live, she retorted. And my sisters as well. Do you think they would let any of us survive if you were exiled or killed? So instead I should kill more of your people? How could you ask that of me? Orla placed her hand against his cheek. Because I have a plan. As spring arrived and the longships were prepared for the first raids, Gunnar found himself caught between worlds. By day, he trained with his warriors, preparing for the voyage that would determine his future. By night, he and Orla spoke in whispers of what was to come. The day of departure dawned clear and bright. Gunnar stood on the shore, watching as his men loaded the longship. Orla approached, her sisters hanging back. Remember your promise, she said softly. Gunnar nodded grimly. I will return within a moon's turn. And we will be ready. Their farewell was brief, a touch of hands, nothing more. Too many eyes watched them. As the longship pulled away from shore, Gunnar saw her standing tall against the sky, her red hair whipping in the wind like a banner of flame. The voyage to air was familiar yet strange. Gunnar felt like a different man than the one who had led raids in previous years. His warriors sensed the change, eyeing him with a mixture of concern and suspicion. Only Hakon seemed to understand the turmoil within him. It will be easier once blood is drawn, Hakon said as they approached the Irish coast. The old instincts will return. Gunnar said nothing, his eyes fixed on the horizon. The raid itself unfolded like a nightmare. They struck a small coastal settlement at dawn, warriors pouring from the longship with weapons raised. Gunnar moved mechanically, his axe rising and falling, but he took no joy in the slaughter. Instead, he focused on directing his men toward the goods rather than the people, minimizing casualties while ensuring enough plunder to satisfy the Jarl. As the raiders prepared to withdraw with their spoils, a group of Celtic warriors appeared on the ridge above the beach, their weapons gleaming in the morning light. Among them was a man whose resemblance to Orla was unmistakable, the same fiery hair, the same proud bearing. Her brother, Gunnar realized with a shock. This must be the settlement she had spoken of, where some of her kin had fled after the previous raids. The Celts charged down the slope, screaming battle cries. Gunnar's warriors formed a shield wall, meeting the attack with disciplined ferocity. In the chaos, Gunnar found himself face to face with Orla's brother. You are Brennan's son, Gunnar said in the Celtic tongue, blocking a sword strike. The man faltered, surprise flickering across his face. How do you know my father's name, Viking? Your sisters live. Orla, Fiona, and Ashlyn. They are safe. Liar! The man attacked with renewed fury, his sword whistling through the air. Gunnar defended himself without striking back. I speak truth. Ask me something only they would know. The Celtic warrior hesitated, his sword poised for another strike. The song our mother sang at bedtime. What was it? About a Selkie who loved a fisherman. Gunnar replied, remembering Orla's stories. She hummed it while tending my fields. Doubt crept into the man's eyes. If they live, where are they? In my settlement. But not as slaves. Orla is. Gunnar struggled to find the words. She is dear to me. Before the conversation could continue, Hakon appeared, driving his sword toward the Celtic warrior. Gunnar deflected the blow with his axe. What are you doing? Hakon shouted. He is Orla's brother. Hakon's eyes widened, then hardened. All the more reason to kill him. No! Gunnar stood between them. Enough blood has been shed. Have you lost your mind? Step aside. When Gunnar refused, Hakon attacked him instead, his face contorted with rage and betrayal. You choose them over us? Over me? Their weapons clashed as the battle raged around them. Warriors from both sides watched in confusion as the two Vikings fought each other with deadly intent. I choose a different path, Gunnar grunted, parrying a vicious strike. This endless cycle of raid and revenge must end. It will never end, Hakon roared. It is who we are. It is who we were, Gunnar corrected, landing a blow that sent Hakon stumbling backward. But we can be more. Seeing his chance, Orla's brother retreated, gathering his surviving warriors. The Vikings, seeing their leaders locked in combat, hesitated in their pursuit. Finally, Gunnar disarmed Hakon, sending his sword spinning into the sand. He stood over his friend, axe raised. Finish it, Hakon spat. Prove you are still a Viking. Gunnar lowered his weapon. I am still a Viking. But I will not kill my brother. He turned to his bewildered warriors. Gather the plunder. We return home. And him? One asked, pointing at Hakon. He comes with us. The Jarl will decide his fate. The return voyage was tense and silent. Hakon sat bound in the ship, his eyes burning with resentment. The other warriors kept their distance from Gunnar, uncertain where their loyalties should lie. As they approached the Shetland coast, Gunnar spotted a small fishing boat anchored in a hidden cove, exactly where it was supposed to be. Relief washed over him. Orla had kept her part of the bargain. The longship was greeted with cheers as it beached on the shore of the settlement. The Jarl himself came to inspect the plunder, nodding with approval at the wealth they had brought back. It seems you remembered how to be a Viking after all, he said to Gunnar. Then his gaze fell on the bound Hakon. What is this? He attacked me during the raid, Gunnar explained. He must answer for his treachery. Hakon struggled against his bonds. The treachery is his. He spared the life of an enemy warrior, the brother of his Celtic woman. Murmurs spread through the gathered crowd. The Jarl's face darkened. Is this true? Before Gunnar could answer, a commotion arose from the edge of the gathering. Orla pushed her way through the crowd, her sisters behind her. It is true, she declared loudly. He spared my brother because Gunnar Erikson is a man of honor, something rare among your kind. Seize her, the Jarl commanded. Wait. Gunnar stepped between Orla and the advancing warriors. Hear me first. I have brought wealth to this settlement for 15 years. I have bled for our people and led men to victory time and again. Have I not earned the right to choose my own path? Your path betrays everything we stand for, the Jarl retorted. Does it? Our ancestors were not just raiders. They were explorers, traders, settlers. They adapted and changed. Why must we cling to old ways that bring only more bloodshed? Some of the older men in the crowd nodded thoughtfully, but others gripped their weapons tighter. You speak of change, the Jarl said, but what you propose is abandonment of our very identity. I propose a future where we might find more than what we steal, Gunnar countered. Where we might build rather than destroy. Hakon laughed bitterly from where he knelt. Listen to him. Bewitched by a Celtic witch, speaking of peace like a Christian monk. I speak as a man who has seen enough death. Gunnar replied evenly. As have many of you. His gaze swept the crowd, lingering on the faces of warriors who had fought beside him for years. How many more widows must we create? How many more orphans? How many more blood feuds that last generations? A tense silence fell over the gathering. Then an old warrior stepped forward, his beard white with age. I have followed the old ways for 60 winters, he said slowly. I have seen glory and I have seen grief. Perhaps there is wisdom in the young man's words. Wisdom or weakness? Challenged another warrior. The debate might have continued, but it was interrupted by shouts from the lookout post. Ships approaching. Celtic ships. All eyes turned to the horizon, where indeed several vessels were visible, their design clearly not Norse. You, the Jarl roared, turning on Orla. You led them here. No, she protested. I know nothing of this. Gunnar's mind raced. Could it be her brother? Had he somehow tracked them? But how would he have gathered ships so quickly? Prepare for battle, the Jarl commanded. Warriors scattered to collect weapons and form defensive positions. Gunnar grabbed Orla's arm. Get your sisters and go to my longhouse. Bar the door. I won't hide while you fight my people. This isn't the plan we made. He hissed. Something has gone wrong. As the Celtic ships drew closer, a lone figure stood at the bow of the lead vessel. Even from a distance, the red hair was unmistakable. It's Cormac, Orla whispered, recognizing her brother. The Celtic ships beached a safe distance from the settlement. Cormac disembarked, accompanied by several warriors, but they kept their weapons sheathed. He approached alone, stopping when Viking archers trained their bows on him. I come to speak with Gunnar Erikson, he called out in broken Norse. The Jarl looked at Gunnar suspiciously. You know this man? He is Orla's brother, Gunnar admitted. I spared his life during the raid. And now he brings war to our shores, the Jarl said grimly. Let me speak with him, Gunnar urged. There need be no bloodshed today. After a tense moment, the Jarl nodded. Speak with him. But know that if this is treachery, you will die first. Gunnar approached Cormac, acutely aware of the arrows aimed at both of them. Orla followed despite his protests. You found us quickly, Gunnar said when they met on the neutral ground between the ships and the settlement. I followed your ship, Cormac replied. I had to know if what you said was true, about my sisters. His eyes moved to Orla, widening with emotion. Orla? Is it truly you? Cormac! She embraced her brother, tears streaming down her face. How did you find others to come with you? These are our cousins from the northern settlements. When I told them you might be alive. He trailed off, looking at Gunnar warily. Is it true what he said? That you are not a slave? That he cares for you? Orla nodded, taking Gunnar's hand openly. It is true. And I care for him. Cormac's face registered shock, then confusion. But he is Viking. Our enemy. He was, she agreed. Now he is something else. As am I. From the settlement, the Jarl called out impatiently. What does he want, Gunnar? Why have they come? Gunnar turned to Cormac. Why have you come? For revenge? For my sisters, Cormac answered. To bring them home, or to avenge them if they were harmed. And now? Cormac studied the joined hands of his sister and the Viking warrior. Now I don't know. Gunnar made a decision. He turned back to the Jarl and the assembled Vikings. He came for his family. As any of us would do. There need be no battle today. They invaded our shores, someone shouted. As we invaded theirs, Gunnar countered. When does it end? Today, perhaps. Right here. He addressed both groups, the Vikings behind him and the Celts before him. For too long, our peoples have known each other only through raid and revenge. But we are not so different. We love our families. We honor courage. We seek better lives for our children. Orla spoke next, her voice carrying clearly in the coastal air. My people have suffered at Viking hands. But this man, she squeezed Gunnar's hand, showed that another way is possible. He saved me and my sisters when he could have treated us as spoils of war. He learned our language, respected our ways. He saw us as people, not just enemies. The Jarl stepped forward, his weathered face thoughtful. Pretty words. But what are you proposing, Gunnar? That we simply stop raiding? That we welcome these foreigners as friends? I propose we start with 1 day of peace, Gunnar replied. Then perhaps another. I propose trade instead of raid. I propose we learn from each other rather than fear each other. Hakon, who had been freed during the alarm, pushed his way forward. This is madness. They would never accept us as anything but raiders and murderers. Perhaps not all, Cormac conceded, surprising everyone by speaking directly to the Vikings in his limited Norse. But some might. If given reason. A murmur ran through both groups. The Jarl stroked his beard, his eyes moving from the Celtic ships to his own warriors, calculating the cost of battle versus the strange possibility being offered. "What guarantee do we have that this is not a trick?" he finally asked. "That more Celtic ships are not waiting beyond the horizon? The same guarantee you give us that more Viking longships won't appear tomorrow," Cormac replied evenly. "Trust," Gunnar said simply. "It must begin somewhere." The tension stretched like a bowstring pulled too tight. Then, unexpectedly, the old white-bearded warrior stepped forward again. "I have buried 2 sons and a grandson," he said, his voice carrying the weight of decades. "All lost in raids or counter-raids. I have celebrated their deaths with tales of Valhalla, but in the dark of night, I have wondered, is there not a better way for our people to be remembered than by how many we killed?" His words seemed to release something in the gathering. Other voices joined, a woman who had lost her husband, a young warrior tired of the constant fear of reprisal, an elder who remembered when trade had flourished alongside raiding. The Jarl listened, his face impassive, before finally raising his hand for silence. "This is not a decision I can make alone. The thing must debate and decide. But for today..." He looked at the Celtic ships, then at Gunnar and Orla standing together. "For today, we will have peace." That evening, an unprecedented feast was held in the Great Hall. Vikings and Celts sat at the same tables, sharing mead and stories, discovering connections they had never imagined. Tensions remained, generations of hatred could not be erased in a single day, but it was a beginning. As the celebration continued, Gunnar and Orla slipped away to the shore, where the night sky stretched endlessly above them. "Will it last?" Orla asked, leaning against him. "I don't know," Gunnar admitted. "Change comes slowly, and there will be resistance from both sides. And us? What becomes of us?" Gunnar turned to face her, taking both her hands in his. "That is for you to decide. You are free, Orla. You and your sisters. If you wish to return with your brother, I would understand." Orla searched his face in the moonlight. "And if I wish to stay? Then I would build a life with you that honors both our peoples. It would not be an easy path. The worthy paths rarely are," she replied, echoing a Viking's saying he had taught her. Their kiss was witnessed only by the stars, ancient and unchanging above a world in flux. The future remained uncertain, the path forward uncharted, but they had taken the first step together, a Viking warrior and a Celtic woman, bridging worlds that had known only conflict. In the years that followed, their union would become legend, a story told in both Norse and Celtic tongues, of how love between enemies planted the first seeds of peace. Some versions claimed they established a trading post that grew into a thriving settlement, where both peoples lived in harmony. Others insisted they sailed to distant lands, founding a new community based on respect rather than conquest. But all versions agreed on one thing: it began with a choice, to see beyond the barriers of culture and hatred, to recognize the humanity in the other, and to believe that even the oldest of enemies could find common ground in the most human of emotions, love. The anger of generations, crystallized in Gunnar's heart through years of raiding, and in Orla's through years of suffering, gradually transformed into something new and unexpected, a bridge between worlds, a promise that even the deepest divisions could be healed with courage, understanding, and time. And in the end, that was the greatest victory of all.